What is up, everybody? It is Ebontis, and we've got a new TWAB today. I have not looked at this thing yet, so we're going to do a quick live look over and see what we've got. Today is October 28th. We do have the Last Word podcast tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, literally right here on the YouTube channel where you're likely to see this thing. So if you catch it tonight, in the next couple hours or so, come check out the stream, and we will be talking about all of this stuff, I'm sure. You know, they said they are replacing the flawless pool. That was the tweet. So that's why I wanted to jump in and actually discuss this with you guys before we actually get to it tonight on the podcast, because Trials matchmaking changes has had a lot of experimentation. It's time to see where they landed. But as they say, basically, you know, Festival of the Lost is going to be wrapping up, so you have until Tuesday, November 2nd to finish your books, eat your candy, see if you want to go after any more roles on the Jurassic Green, all of those things, finish your pages, all that stuff. So that is wrapping up. Trials will kick off tomorrow, of course, so you have that over the weekend along with Xur, and let's see how it's changing. So they said a quick recap of stats from the last few weeks shows everything to be steady too. Matchmaking times are consistent within the past weeks. Blowout rates dropped slightly week over week. This is consistent with lower skilled players not playing as much. Average hours played per player remains consistent across skill levels. Overall player counts went down each week, but that is expected during this portion of the season and is consistent with past Trials and Iron Banner performance. We still don't see any evidence of widespread flawless card resets to avoid the flawless pool. Less than 0.5% of cards played were reset while still flawless, and above 3 wins. Even still, the impetus to do this should be removed starting this week. More on that below. Now we'll look at Freelance. Last weekend we gave players a strictly solo queue option for Trials, which personally I enjoyed. We'll talk about more on the podcast tonight. I just always liked knowing I would never face a 3-stack. Honestly, just kind of kept me going sometimes. We entered the weekend with some assumptions on how the population could split, what might happen to matchmaking times, and a few questions on how to offer freelance options in the future. Here's a quick recap from the team on how things went, what we learned, and what we're thinking for the future. So for freelance, they say the past weekend we opened freelance queues so that solo players could consistently play against other groups of solos. How'd that feel? We had over 1 million games played in each playlist this weekend, with slightly more games in the base Trials playlist. Average hours played for the lower skilled players is up quite a bit over the past weeks, while the average to top end has almost the same hours played. Interestingly, players who played in a fire team some of the time and solo some of the time played almost 3 times as long this weekend as players who played exclusively in either one. It's actually kind of interesting because, you know, you may be up at a weird hour, you want to get a few solo games in, your team's on, you might play. You actually get a chance to kind of do both in exclusive setting. Maybe it's experimentation, maybe it's just, you know, open-endedness on both occasions. Could be a good thing. Player numbers. 244,000 freelance exclusive players, 120,000 fire team exclusive players, 220,000 played in both solo and in a fire team. That's actually an interesting mix. 25% of the players went flawless, lower than any revamp week. Likely fallout of matches being fair. If it doesn't drop below 20% for a weekend, the Lighthouse should still feel attainable. Average matchmaking times were consistently around 50 seconds for full fire team and solos, and regularly were about 100 seconds for duos. Duos is probably the weird one, I believe that. The Sunday Flawless Pool adds about 10 seconds to flawless player matchmaking, and we're seeing some worrying spikes in matchmaking times for some of the smaller sub-pools post-Flawless Pool split. That makes sense. The smaller and smaller pool you get to, the longer it's going to take to find people in the same kind of situation that you're in. The overall blowout rate, games that ended up 5-0, was almost as low as our best post-revamp week when the Flawless Pool went active Friday afternoon at 27.8%. This was powered by the significant number of fire teams versus fire team matches and solos versus solo matches, both of which had 25% blowout rates. It's like if you're facing teams versus teams, likely gonna have some more communication, might win some here or there. All solos, everybody's on that kind of level chaotic playing field. Makes sense. Yeah, you can see blowout rates a little high on day 2 evening, so that would be what, Saturday night. Hardcores kind of get on, play through the evening a little bit, and then kind of tapers off a little bit. Not too bad. But again, it is fairly consistent for most of it. That's actually kind of interesting. Match outcomes this week, Freelance versus Base. 5-0 games, less in the Freelance playlist. More in that one. 5-1, pretty close. 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. Less games definitely in the 5-4 category. And actually you can see the balance starts tipping. There are less and less games with the normal playlist that get into that higher ranking and higher in the blowouts. That is kind of interesting stat. I'll be curious to talk about that tonight. One thing we aren't happy about with is team balance. We've noticed that how the solo playlist isn't doing a good job balancing two teams when there aren't any fire team mismatches. For Trials, it's currently just picking teams randomly. We're going to be looking very carefully at how teams are selected over the next few weeks and hopefully have a better balance the next time Freelance rolls around, which please tell me when that is. This is one of the downsides of not using skill-based matchmaking. Honestly, at this point, like we've talked about on the podcast, skill-based matchmaking, a ranking playlist, some kind of thing. Some people don't want skill-based matchmaking, but if you go into Trials and I'm fighting people around the same level as me, I'm probably going to have a better time. I know for some people who are like the hardcore elite PvP, they're also going to have sweaty matches all the time. I don't know. That's always that debate, basically. It's like they can't experiment with something that's like off meta, because if they're experimenting with something off meta and somebody's using Shadow Dive in every match, it does make their experiments less fun. I get that to a point, but also for me, I should not be facing, you know, the elites of the world, because everything for me is bad at that point. I don't know. I think that discussion is going to go on forever, but there definitely should probably be some skill-based matchmaking in there. That's a discussion for another day. In situations where skill would be helpful to balance two teams of solo players, it is even a data point the system can look at. Speaking of which, Freelance futures. We would like the overall outcome and vibe of the Freelance queue, and both playlists seem to have a viable amount of players. We're looking at running Freelance occasionally for the remainder of 15, but are still trying to determine what feels right. I like the fact that it's, you know, occasionally. Once a month, once every 3 weeks, like kind of intermixed with, you know, got an Iron Banner once a month, got a Freelance once a month. That I would like to see it every so often. Every other week might be a little high, I don't know, but still would like to see Freelance come in there because it seems like it actually did okay. Long term, we are exploring some single playlist solutions, preferential matching of full fire teams against other full fire teams, duo plus solo against duo plus solo, solos, that kind of thing. We don't have a specific target for this yet, but will not be prior to Season 16, so the big changes are going to come with Witch Queen. They've kind of mentioned that previously. Flawless Pool changes. The Flawless Pool, which we have been enabling Sunday every time, has some very positive benefits. It raises the overall match quality, blowout rates, and etc. significantly, and it raises the overall win rates of solo players. However, it has some drastic downsides for players who struggle and manage to just barely go flawless. It is a steep cliff then to only play against players who have already gone flawless that week. Again, you start divvying up these people into matchmaking pools, and then if you had flawless in there, there's a lot of variety of options. I knew at some point they were trying to get rid of it. They're just trying to manage it for the time being. It also incentivizes behavior that is at odds with the mode and reward system, like resetting a flawless 6-win ticket to keep matches easier. Also, plenty of like podcasts and things that I've listened to mention that, you know, if you go flawless and you've got a friend who isn't, they don't want to play with you, and you should never like not want to play with your friends just because they've achieved something earlier in the weekend, but they may be able to help you as well. It also is going to hurt carries, things like that, which carries is a whole thing depending on what you're doing, but hopefully some skill-based matchmaking will tie into that. And again, people wouldn't like carries, but if, you know, 2 people are stacked and 1 person's okay, then a 2 stacked people versus kind of stacked, 3 stacked versus that 2 and 1 might be a little more manageable. Again, you've got to look at skill if you're looking at matchmaking. If it's just connections, you might as well just flip a coin and hope for the best. However, it has, let's see, where was I? It also creates social friction where players need to decide between playing with friends or playing for rewards. Lastly, the timing, 10 a.m. Pacific on Sundays, is awkward if you live anywhere but in the Americas. Yeah, like there's a lot of factors with the flawless pool. Like it wasn't going to be a long-term thing. They're probably checking data more than anything, and just having a hard line in the sand to look at data before and after is probably something they could use. Starting tomorrow, we are rolling out a new system and leaning into weekly performance metrics. Whenever you match in Trials, in addition to trying to match people with the same number of card wins, you also attempt to match people who have roughly the same number of overall wins for the weekend. Interesting concept. What if I guess, I don't know, we'll see. If you can't find anyone to match against, it eventually expands to find less similar. For the PvP gods who go flawless 10 times a weekend, they will end up matching with other players who have, for example, 70 plus wins on their accumulation of cards, no matter how they got them. For the average team who gets a lucky flawless in on Friday or Saturday on their first card, well, they will be matching against other players with around 7 wins, no matter how they got them. We are hoping this will give many of the benefits of the flawless pool system, somewhat fairer matches, without the significant downsides. Again, they still won't touch. They're looking at wins and cumulative wins, but doesn't seem to ever have skill in here. Maybe they don't have like specific ways to look at skill, KD, KDA, all that stuff is, you know, can be messed with per se, but still, at some point I feel like they've got get a little skill in here. Specifically, there should be no major inflection point where everything everything is smooth prior to a win, and then everything is overly challenged after. And that I do agree with. If you get up to a point where you have, I don't know, you do get your flawless card, and then you just hit a brick wall, that kind of takes some fun out of the system. If you've gone flawless, and then you can go for more, maybe a second card, who knows. Either way, this allows us to remove the flawless pool. It does have the potential downside, longer matchmaking times, which I think everybody's okay with if they have better matches. If I have to wait 50 seconds versus like a minute and a half, like there's enough like on a computer, a phone, or anything else, you can wait 90 seconds for a match if it's a better match, because if that match is long or short and doesn't feel good, it's worth waiting a little bit longer, personally. Over the next few weekends, we are going to be looking at how much matchmaking time goes up and how it affects the match quality. Again, 50 seconds is what they're going for. If it's 100, if it's 9, even if it's 90 seconds, if it's 80 seconds, if it goes up 30 seconds, but I have a lot better matches, that is fine with me. The outcome of previous non-labs were, Fireteam versus all solos. Again, just kind of showing you the rankings of where the 5-0 games, 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. In ideal world, we want each of the numbers to get close to 20% as possible, and they're kind of hovering, but the 5-0s are still weighted a little higher. 5-1s, definitely some strong teams there. The 5-4s are not as high as they would like them. They'd like some tighter games if they could, but we would rather see more 5-4, 5-3 than 5-0, 5-1. Again, they need to still tip that scale to a little better consistency, and I still think skill is going to be part of that. We'll see if they get in there. As always, we're continuing listening to your feedback, and we'll see how it goes. Again, this much discussion over trials is a good thing. They're doing a lot of experimentation in this quiet part of the season. Figure out what they can. Hopefully have it be in a good place for Witch Queen. +1. They have a new community manager. Alas, the time has come. Liana, aka Hippie. Check her out on Twitter. She was actually posting stuff, and she's been mentioning that she's coming. If you want to read about her, I don't need to read that one to you guys per se, but a new community manager, go check her out on Twitter. It's Dirty Effin' Hippie, DIRTYEFFIN HIPPY. Go check her out on Twitter. Follow her. Of course, the community managers, always great people. Be nice to the community managers. They are like vessels for your message. And if you're a jackass, your message is not going to get across. Excuse my language. Anyway, it is Halloween. You've got different costumes. They've been going through Festival of Lost, seeing who's got some good ones. There's this really cool one by Hikari. It's like a pumpkin that they record. It's amazing. Check out some of these. It's actually a really cool render or video. Oats, of course, doing some cool posters. Gotta love all this stuff. There's the Rutabaga area increase. If you don't know, there's an issue of generating more orbs of power than intended while triggering supers. It's something on PC only. It's like alt-tabbing. Basically, if you're on PC, you got to be careful about alt-tabbing because of like issues with this error. So just be careful with that. Try and make it a conscious decision. Don't do it frequently all the time. Alt-tabbing is how you're kind of going to mess with that stuff. We did just get a little hot fix today. This is the last week in Festival Lost. There are some known issues. To no surprise, there always are. And then finally, if you come down here to the bottom, this is one thing to mention to you guys. Festival Lost coming to a close. We're nearing the end of the scheduled season beats for a bit. So it's time for free play. Next week, Saladin will be hosting Iron Banner. So there will be trials this weekend. Iron Banner next week. So no trials next week. The week after that, trials will be back on. And as they say, so if you want to get some Pinnacle drops or anything of that nature, trials will come back for the rest of November with the matchmaking changes that they're going to have on this weekend. You can also use this time to catch up on Catalyst and other things, which is the point for me as well, where let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see from me. If there's some generic guides, if you're a new player, if you're looking at questions about weapons. I'm honestly thinking about doing things like understanding champions, like what are the good bows and linear fusions and fusion rifles, and kind of doing some guidance of, what are decent ones, where to get them, stuff of that nature. But let me know what you guys would like to see for content. December 7th is the 30th anniversary. New dungeon, Galahorn quest will be active. We've got some new ornaments, and if they've got any other secrets going on in there. But it does seem like November is going to be very light. I am waiting on a monitor, which will, give me a little more variety when it comes to other games that I'm playing. I'm waiting on a couple that I kind of just want to look really pretty for. But at least with regards to Destiny and content that you guys want to see from me, if you guys want to see me play through, like, say, Guardians of the Galaxy and record my uploads and have those uploaded to the channel as well. Again, it's like hard with the YouTube algorithm to go like plug another game in there. So let me know what you guys want to see in the comments below. That would definitely be appreciated. As I said, the last word will be live tonight in literally like little over 2 hours from while I'm recording this, so jump back into the channel and watch the podcast. We'll be talking about all the Trials changes. And other than that, thank you guys very much. If you want to find me on Twitter, it is at Ebontis. If you want to find me streaming, it's either on Twitch or right here on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit the alert bell, and I will see you guys soon, hopefully tonight in the chat. Have a good night. I'll see you soon.